Hi, hopefully that gives you a hint of what we're going to talk about today. Again, this is Scott down here in Clearwater, Florida, and today we're talking about underwater photography. And in particular, the X-T20, the Fuji X-T20. Now, I have been into diving ever since I was a kid. My graduation present from high school was scuba diving lessons, and I was happy as could be. And also, being a photographer, I've always wanted to photograph underwater, but never really could justify the expense of the underwater housings that were available. And just recently, I saw housing from a company called Meikon. Again, see if I can show you this here. You can see there got Meikon, and they also sell it under this Kit Dive logo, whatever company, and that's through Amazon. And essentially, what changed things for me is that I looked at these housings. I thought they looked pretty good online, and they were under $200. Now, anyone who has looked into underwater housings and looked at companies like Ecolite and some of the others, you're talking usually $1,000 plus for these housings. And like I said, I always wanted one, but I usually changed my cameras once I got into the digital age every 2 to 3 years, and I just couldn't justify, because I wish I could get out diving every weekend, but I can. In fact, I originally am from New Jersey, which is where I learned how to dive, and I rarely got to go diving. But now I live in Clearwater, Florida, so there's more opportunities, but you still got to go a ways to do some true diving, reef diving, really pretty photography diving. So I never quite justified it to myself. But I was also interested in surf photography, and I kind of been looking at the bags and stuff, but found this Meikon, and essentially, let me go ahead and show it. This is the Meikon housing. As you can see, it says X-T10 there, but the X-T10 and the X-T20 are virtually identical as far as controls and body, so both work in this housing. As you can see, this housing is quite beefy, quite nice. Has a lot of controls. You got a focus and a zoom knob here that you twist, and there's a button to pop up the flash. You got your control dial, you got your shutter dial, you got your compensation dial, you got your on-off switch, you got your shutter button. This dial does the back wheel. There isn't anything for the front wheel, but you can kind of work around that pretty easily. And then if you look on the back, let me see if I can give you a better view here and have it focus on it. You can see it pretty much has the full collection of buttons to control on the back. And here is your LCD port. It also goes up to the point that you could look through the viewfinder. It doesn't work that well. The camera sits in about a ½ inch. Let me go ahead and show you the inside. It's got a safety clamp here. You got to press this red button down. Oops, at the same time that you're pulling it, and that brings up this latch, and there's your hinge. So your camera goes inside here, you lift up all these controls, and then you slip your camera in, and then you put these down, and that makes a friction fit onto your housing. And you can see all these buttons over here, they line up with the buttons on the inside. As you can see, the setup's a little strange, and that's because sometimes they have to go roundabout to get to press all the buttons. But pretty much you have all your full control. And now that we're looking inside here, this is designed for the XC1650 lens, but that being said, Here, these two wheels are focus and zoom, and over here is an idler wheel. They're held on with simple screws. Hopefully you can see that as I try to point it there. And if you unscrew those and put them away safely in a baggie for later or whatever, you can actually fit the 18 to 55 in there. Now, of course, if you do that, you lose your zoom control and your focus control. But one of the chief things that you'll learn in underwater photography is that wide angle is pretty much what you want to use all the time. So pretty much you're going to put that 18 to 55 on 18 and keep it their way. Regrettably, surf photography not quite as simple, because there you might want to be using a longer focal length. But underwater, wide is the way you want to go, because there's I believe the term is backscatter, and that's talking about all this silt and stuff in the water affects your ability to take a picture. It's kind of like shooting through fog. So you essentially need to get as close as you can to your subjects to try to eliminate that space between lens and subject, and then all the stuff that might be floating in the water in that area, the silt and such. So that's why wide angles are key. That's why you probably want to use that 16 of the 16 to 50. And essentially I have a little video at the end here where I took some photos, and it's pretty much I set it at 16 and forgot it and put it in autofocus, and it did pretty good. I was totally pleased with the results. So there you go, there's housing. You got optical ports here to connect external flashes. You got some lugs here and here and here, so you can attach a flash to it. You have a quarter 20 base here that you can attach to, and they make some other brackets and flash holders and things that'll connect to that as well. For those who are aware, you're probably sitting there looking, going, oh, that has a flat port, which is not necessarily the preferred in professional use for underwater photography. They essentially have dome ports and flat ports. Without getting too much into the physics, essentially because you have this airspace and water space, that becomes part of the optical elements, and things underwater will appear larger because you get a magnifying effect, and that again why you want those wide angle lenses. So 16 millimeter works very well, and it works with the flat port, but there is a optional dome port that you can fit on the front of this, and it's what they call a wet port, so it just kind of like slides on the front, versus a dry port, which is like some of the more expensive units. Even Meikon has an X-T2 body or housing, and it actually has a removable ports and has a dry dome port available for it, I believe, but significantly more money. Well, relatively speaking, we're talking under $200 here, which is really inexpensive. I believe the X-T2 version is more towards the $400 or $500 range. Still a fraction of what you would pay from some of the big companies out there selling. So essentially, fantastic little case, nice and secure as far as the latch and the safety mechanism. As far as safety, the other nice thing that has to it is, if we can see it here, I'm dropping my thermal or water pads. There's a little thing here, and if I wet my finger and press on it, you can see that it's making a noise, and a little light over here is coming on. Those are audible and a visual warning when you're underwater that you're getting water in your case. When water touches that sensor on the bottom, it's going to give you a warning, and you'll want to know that. because as much as these cases are well made, a lot of it comes down to what you do in your care and feeding. You have to make sure there's a O-ring down here, and there's an O-ring here. This will close down onto that O-ring, and then this O-ring will push against the wall. So it's pretty secure, but if you get little grits of sand or a hair or anything, you don't take care of these seals, they can get little leaks. You're not necessarily going to get catastrophic leaks, but you can get little leaks, and you have to make sure you take good care and that you don't like get sand in here and then close it down and then lock it in storage, because then it's going to put imprint into that O-ring, and that could create a small trickle of water. So you definitely want to take care of those seals. But as you can see, this is a very husky, durable body with nice safety features, and that clamp is pretty tight. The other thing is nice that, you know, even though this is kind of big and clunky, even with my X-T20 in here, it's got this really great hold to it, and I don't have an enormous hand, so you know, somebody with even bigger hands would have even less of a trouble. But again, it's just nice. So you know, I have no problems using this as, you know, in the surf, as well as underwater. So I think for the money, it's an incredible value. I did take it out to a local park here called Howard Park, and I did not do this at the best time. Again, when we talk about the silt in the water and stuff, if you're going to do anything where it's at inlets or on beaches, the best time to go out is what they call slack tide, and that is the time, you know, you got about hour between low tide and high tide, where the water kind of calms, and at that time a lot of the silt will settle, and that's when you'll have your clearest water. Now that I've said that, I didn't do that. I was just eager to finally get this thing in the water and make sure it doesn't leak, and to see how it would operate. And so I went out to Howard Park with absolutely no clue as to what the tides were. So there was a lot of silt in the water, and you'll kind of see that in my images. Now, what I'm going to show is not particularly wonderful. You know, it's like I was not going to beautiful clear waters and shooting on reefs with lots of wonderful colorful fishes. But nevertheless, I still find that, you know, the footage is interesting, and it shows, you know, just how much life is hiding below the surface, even at a local beach here in Florida. So again, I will kind of dub over and kind of point out some things, because you know, I left in what you might consider horrible footage because I was kind of wanting to show some of the potential problems with using an underwater housing. And again, I am no expert. This is my first housing for true SLR. I've had a few, you know, little point and shoots that could be used underwater, but nothing like this. But I am definitely impressed with it. I think for the money, it can't be beat, and if you're starting out, it's just a great value. So look at the film, and then we'll talk about it later.
Okay, here we have the shoreline and my daughter standing out there. This was at Howard Park, and there's furry me. Not the best visibility. And you can see one problem I'm already having. I was getting bubbles on the port, and you can avoid that by spitting on it and letting it dry. And I've heard some people actually lick the port to get that film on it, that it basically lets the water stream off it and bubbles not form. But I should have known better being a diver, but I didn't. You go out and do stuff and you learn. You're going to see the conditions changing, and I didn't change the settings for each clip. Pretty much went with auto white balance, and I made one correction in the editor, and I used it on everything. So things will look better when I'm getting more sunshine. And as you can see, the closer you get, the better things look. You can see those little, those are probably air bubbles that are on the port. Oh, there we go. Totally focusing on them. So you can see we definitely don't want them on our port. So again, lick your port, I guess. Either that, bring a rag to wipe it off, but watch out for sand and scratching. And as you can see, the closer we get, the better it looks. And if you look at the top of the frame, you can really see where the video codec is struggling with the kind of information that's in there. But all in all, considering the conditions, not bad. And again, focusing on the air bubbles. Yeah, these little guys I played some cat and mouse with. You can see as you get close just how good it can look, even in these bad conditions. There's a colorful guy. And the rest of his flock. School, I suppose I should say. But you can see those bubbles, you know, the sunshine hitting them just really stick out. And you can see how much stuff is in the water. That really challenges getting a good view. Not sure what these guys are. But I didn't look them up. And you can see just see it's get closer, it looks better further away. And again, that's why those wide angles are so important, to be able to get close. And again, everything was shot at the 16mm setting on the 16-50. And it was auto white balance, so it varies. I did not change it for clips. Here we got a lot more sun coming through. Sun came from behind the clouds. I believe this guy is a snook. Good eating. You just see all the stuff in the water. Again, get close. Looks pretty good. Well, maybe oysters and things. Not sure what this ugly little thing is, but anybody does, they can comment. Again, those air bubbles on the front. I saw this little guy out of the corner of my eye. I'm being pushed around by the current and waves, so... And played cat and mouse with these guys on and off. And you can see we got pretty good light now. We're getting close, and the images are looking pretty good. See, even when he gets like a few feet away, it's just not as sharp and good because of all that stuff in the water. Hopefully, someday I'll get down to a nice clear reef and be able to show some dynamite photos. Except for that dot on my lens. Again, that's a air bubble on the port. I stirred up the sand and he'd come to forage in it. See if I uncovered anything good. So I'm pretty close to him at this point. So that's pretty much it. That focusing mechanism going there, if I haven't mentioned it. I left the audio as is. So, hope you like that. Again, nothing special, but it shows what it can do.
Okay, hopefully you like that. Hopefully this has been informative. If you can, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down, but please add something in the comments how I could have made it better for you. Again, this channel is for mainly Fuji, but I look in all sorts of accessories, filming as well, and hopefully you enjoyed this one. This one was interesting to me. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos of this type. I don't do too many, maybe one a week. I'm trying to make sure I do one a week, but sometimes I don't. But please, like I said, thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you.